Hello guys, welcome back to the course. In this video, we are going to get to know more about things that we're going to learn in this course. So in this table of contents, I'm going to explain things that you're going to do, things that you're going to learn in each chapter. And as you guys can see here, in total, we have 10 chapters in this course. So hopefully by the end of this video, you're going to have a better understanding about things that you can expect to learn from each chapter. Alright, so now let's begin with the first chapter, whom this course is intended for. So in the first chapter, we are going to answer these particular questions. So I'm going to explain my intention behind creating this course. I'm going to explain who are my main target students for this course. And obviously, if you are interested in biostatistics and public health, this is definitely the right course for you because that's exactly what you're going to learn here. Alright, so we're going to talk more about that in the first chapter. Now let's move on to the second chapter, tools, IDE, and datasets. So in the second chapter, we are going to talk about programming language that we're going to use. And obviously, we are going to use Python. We're also going to talk about libraries that we're going to utilize like Pandas, Matplotlib, NumPy, and scikit-learn. In addition, we are also going to talk about IDE. For those of you who don't know what IDE is stands for Integrated Development Environment. So it's basically a place where you write and compile your code. So in this course, we are going to use Google Colab as our IDE. However, if you want to use different IDE, maybe VS Code or Jupyter Notebook, it's totally up to you. So Google Colab is a browser-based IDE, which means that you don't need to install anything. Just make sure that you have a stable internet connections. And lastly, we are also going to talk about the dataset. So we're going to get our infectious disease data from Kaggle. So I'm going to walk you through on how to find and download datasets from Kaggle. Okay, so now let's move on to the third chapter, Introductions to Biostatistics. For those of you who are already familiar with biostatistics, feel free to skip this chapter. However, if you're new to biostatistics and you want to learn more, make sure that you pay very close attention to chapter 3, guys. Okay, so in this chapter, we are going to learn the basic fundamentals of biostatistics, especially infectious disease analysis, because that's the project that we're going to do in this course, right? And not only that, we're also going to talk about statistical models and forecasting models that we're going to use, for example, like STL or seasonal trend decompositions. And lastly, we're also going to talk about common challenges that people face when analyzing biostatistics data. Okay, so now let's move on to chapter 4, time series decomposition calculations. So in chapter 4, we're going to have a mini case study. So I'm going to provide you with a simple data set and we're going to calculate time series decompositions using that datasets. So make sure that you understand this concept because we're going to implement this concept in the project sections. Okay, so now let's move on to the next chapter, which is chapter 5, factors that accelerate the speed of infectious disease. So before conducting data analysis, it is very essential for you to be fully aware of these factors, right? So we're going to talk about 6 different factors that can potentially accelerate the spread of the disease. For example, like population density, travel and mobility, environment, healthcare accessibility, herd immunity, and antigenic variations. Okay, so now let's move on to the next chapter, which is chapter 6, setting up all required tools. So in chapter 6, I'm going to guide you step by step on how to set up your Google Colab IDE. I'm going to guide you step by step on how to find and download infectious disease data from Kaggle. Alright, so now let's move on to the next chapter, which is chapter 7, cleaning datasets by removing missing values and duplicates. So the first thing that we're going to do is to check if there's any missing values in our datasets. And if there is any missing value, we're going to remove it. And the same thing with duplicates. So we're going to check first, is there any duplicates in our datasets? If there is any, then we're going to remove it. All right, so the objective of this activity is to clean the data and make sure that the data is ready to be used. Okay, so now let's move on to the next chapter, which is chapter 8, exploratory data analysis. Okay, so in this chapter we are going to explore the data from multiple angles. So firstly, we're going to detect any potential outliers in the data. Then we're going to do many different type of analysis. For example, like comparative analysis, demographic analysis, public health policy evaluations, epidemiological modeling, and spatial analysis, and actually still many more. So we're going to spend most of our time on chapter 8. Okay, so now let's move on to the next chapter, which is chapter 9. Infectious, this is data analysis with time series. Okay, so actually what we're going to do here is very interesting, guys. So we're going to build a forecasting model using SDL, or time series decompositions, to predict the spread of the infectious disease in the future using historical data. So yeah, it's going to be super interesting, guys. Okay, so now let's move on to the next chapter, which is chapter 10, conclusion and summary. So in this chapter, I'm going to summarize all things that we learned in this course, and I'm also going to share a few tips and tricks on how to be a better public health policy maker, right? How to make a data-driven public health policies. And not only that, we're also going to talk about the real-world implementations of all things that we learned in this course. Okay, so I think that's it, guys. That's all you need to know. I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.